For 5 years, Great Britain had been at war with 13 of her North American colonies, now formed into a new nation, the United States. During that time, the success and failure for both sides had fluctuated. The British were driven out of Boston in early 1776, but captured New York City in August of that year. The Americans had managed to win a few minor victories in late 1776 and early 1777. By September 1777, however, the British had again defeated the American army and captured the American capital of Philadelphia, and were poised to split the New England states from the rest of the country. A month later, all would change. In October 1777, the American army not only defeated but captured a British army at Saratoga, New York. This American victory changed the war from a family squabble between Britain and 13 of her colonies to a worldwide conflict. France, who had centuries of animosity towards Britain, and the United States signed a treaty of alliance. Spain, who also had centuries of hostility towards Britain, would be expected to join France in any future conflict. Britain would now not only have to protect her empire in North America, but also in the Caribbean, the Mediterranean, and India. The British government had to rethink their strategy. They came up with the Southern Strategy: occupy and control the southern colonies. The British appointed a new commander in North America, Sir Henry Clinton. They then abandoned Philadelphia and fortified themselves in New York City. They then looked to recapturing the southern colonies, Georgia, North and South Carolina, and possibly Virginia. There were 4 reasons for this change in strategy. The fighting in the North was now a stalemate. The Americans could not capture New York City, and the British had no place in the North to go. Southern ports could be used by privateers or the French Navy to attack British Caribbean colonies. It was believed there was great loyalist support, especially in Georgia and the Carolinas. When peace came, if the British occupied the southern states, they would be able to keep them, which were some of the richest colonies in North America. At this time, I need to clarify some terms that will be used throughout this video. Individuals who supported independence were known as patriots. However, this was not a commonly used term during the Revolution. Most common term used was Whigs. The British and their American supporters also used the word rebels to describe patriots or Whigs. Individuals who supported the king were known as loyalists or Tories. Except for the early days of the rebellion, the southern colonies had been relatively free of conflict between Whigs, Tories, and British soldiers. In Virginia, the royal governor, Lord Dunsmore, had fled the colony to the safety of a British warship, and his loyalist forces had been defeated at the Battle of Great Bridge in December 1775. North Carolina, in the same manner, forced the royal governor out of the colony and onto a warship. Governor Josiah Martin organized an army of Highland immigrants and dissatisfied backcountry settlers to link up with an arriving British army. This force, however, was defeated at the Battle of Moore's Creek in early 1776. Check out this video on the battle. Like the royal governors in North Carolina and Virginia, the royal governor in South Carolina escaped to a warship to await the arrival of a British army. In the meantime, there was an ineffective battle between Whigs and Tories in the backcountry. Many of the Loyalist leaders, however, were captured and imprisoned. In June 1776, a British fleet arrived at Charlestown Harbor, but was defeated at the Battle of Sullivan's Island. The Patriots took control of the Georgia government in July of 1775 and placed the royal governor under house arrest. Fighting took place in the backcountry between Georgia Loyalists and Whigs. Most of the Loyalists, however, fled to Florida, where they assisted the British and Indian allies on attacks of the frontier settlements and defended Florida from Patriot invasions. The British Navy did conduct a raid on a fleet of rice ships in Savannah in March of 1776. Its purpose was to capture the rice shipments, not impose royal authority. During the raid, the royal governor was able to escape, ending any royal representation for the next 3 years. Following the flight of the royal governors and the defeat of the Loyalist militias, fighting in the southern colonies involved conflict between settlers and the Cherokee, who sided with the British. This conflict did not end well for the Cherokee, and they were forced to cede more land to the states. The start of the British Southern strategy began on December 29, 1778. British forces under Lieutenant Colonel Archibald Campbell captured Savannah, Georgia. A Whig militia force in February of 1779, however, decisively defeated a Tory militia force at the Battle of Kettle Creek near Augusta. The victory at Kettle Creek demonstrated a major flaw in the British strategy: the strength of Loyalist support and the inability of the British forces to hold the interior of a state or protect Loyalist recruits outside their area of control. The British recovered a few weeks later, however, by surprising a Whig force at the Battle of Briar Creek. This victory enabled the British to keep control of parts of Georgia until 1781, when the Patriots captured Augusta. General Benjamin Lincoln, commander of the Southern Army, along with a French army and navy under the command of Admiral Count d'Estaing, attacked Savannah between September 16 and October 18, 1779. This Franco-American force failed, however, to recapture the city. The battle tragically resulted in the death of Count Casimir Pulaski, a Polish nobleman who had come to assist America in her fight for independence. May 1780 would see the most crushing defeat of a Continental Army during the course of the war. General Clinton sailed with a force of 8,500 soldiers and 5,000 sailors to Charleston, arriving there the 1st of February. He landed his force south of the city and began a slow and dangerous march towards Charleston. By April 1st, Clinton began formal siege of the city. On May 12th, General Lincoln surrendered 5,500 men to the British. When word reached the backcountry of the surrender, the American troops holding 96 and Camden also surrendered to the British. It appeared the Southern strategy was being successful. A little over 2 weeks later, the British, under Lieutenant Colonel Banastar Tarleton, I'll talk about him later, successfully defeated the last of the Continental soldiers in the South at the Battle of Waxhaws, or, as the Patriots called it, the Waxhaw Massacre. With the defeat of Colonel Buford's force at Waxhaws, organized Continental Army resistance to British rule in Georgia and South Carolina was over. The fighting, however, was not. The war in the South degenerated into a civil war of partisan conflict, with atrocities being committed on both sides. Partisan leaders such as Thomas Sumter, Francis Marion, Andrew Pickens, Elijah Clark, and William Davies kept the fight for independence alive by harassing British and Loyalist troops. In this partisan warfare, battle lines were not static, and the partisan leaders generally operated in the described areas, but were not restricted to them alone. For example, Andrew Pickens led South Carolina militia troops into North Carolina as far as the Virginia line and down into Georgia. Elijah Clark commanded Georgia militia units, not only in Georgia but also in South Carolina. Thinking the conquest of the South was over, except the mopping up of a few scattered Whig militias, General Clinton returned to New York with much of his army, leaving the command in the South to General Charles Cornwallis. The new British commander, however, discovered he was faced with more than mopping up operations. The war in the South was far from over. Thanks for watching this video. If you want to know more about the Revolutionary War in the South, be sure to subscribe to this channel, like, and comment.